I was a firefighter saving lives. Now I live in a cardboard box no one notices. My name is Michael. I pulled 23 people from burning buildings over 15 years. I had a house with a big kitchen, a daughter who loved my Sunday pancakes, and a wife who trusted my hands. Today I sleep behind a grocery store where I once saved a kid with Narcan. You think heroes don't fall? I did. It wasn't the danger that broke me. It was two children I couldn't reach in time. Their voices went quiet before I got there. After that, I saw their faces in smoke, in mirrors, in my daughter's smile. I started drinking to sleep, then to breathe, then to forget. My captain ordered me to stay back from fires. My wife changed the locks. The department took my badge. I lost my home in 8 weeks, my teeth to pliers behind a McDonald's, my dignity to shelter lotteries. Last week, I ran into a burning house again. No gear, no backup, just muscle memory. Let me take you back to the warehouse fire that started everything, and the moment I chose to disobey orders. When saving others becomes the reason you can't save yourself, which life matters least? The one in the flames or your own? The first night I slept outside. I still had my department-issued watch on my wrist, the one they gave me after I pulled the Hendricks family out of their burning duplex in 2018 that I'd pawned everything else by then. The TV went first, then the laptop, then my father's tools that still smelled like the sawdust from his workshop. But I couldn't let go of that watch. Not yet. Was November, and the air behind the Safeway on Meridian Street had that sharp edge that meant winter was coming early. I'd been sleeping on couches for 3 months, first at Martinez's place, then rotating through the guys at Station 14 until their wives started asking too many questions. How long is Mike staying? Became, maybe he needs more help than we can give. Which was a nice way of saying get out. The loading dock behind Safeway wasn't my first choice. But the overhang would keep the rain off, and the dumpsters blocked most of the wind. I knew this spot. 2 years ago, we'd responded to an overdose call right here. Kid couldn't have been older than 19, lips blue, barely breathing. I'd pushed 2 doses of Narcan into his nose while Martinez did chest compressions. The kid came back gasping, eyes wild, asking what happened. I told him he'd been given another chance. Now I was pulling a refrigerator box from their recycling bin. Checking the cardboard for wetness or tears, the box had held a Samsung side-by-side, according to the label. Retail price $1,899. More than I'd made in the last 2 months. I dragged it behind the dumpsters and started unfolding it. My hands working like they used to work with hoses and equipment. Automatic. Efficient, even in the dark. 3 months ago. I'd been sleeping next to Dana in our king-size bed. The one with the memory foam top that helped my back after long shifts. She always kept the room at exactly 68 degrees. Always had lavender lotion on her nightstand. Always kissed me goodnight, even when we were fighting. The cardboard made a hollow sound as I spread it flat. Like a door closing. I still had my sleeping bag, the good one from when we used to camp at Lake Chelan with Sarah. Back when I was the dad who knew how to start fires, set up tents, cook pancakes on a camp stove. Sarah would count the stars while I told her made-up stories about each constellation. That one's the great pancake spatula, I'd say, and she'd laugh so hard she'd get hiccups. Inside the refrigerator box, the space was smaller than I'd expected. I had to pull my knees up to fit. The cardboard smelled like nothing, just dry, dead air. I could hear cars passing on Meridian, their tires hissing on the wet asphalt. Someone was arguing in Spanish in the apartment building next door. A cat knocked over a bottle somewhere in the alley. My watch said 11:47 p.m. Still working after everything else had stopped. I thought about Dana, probably reading in bed with her glasses on. Sarah would be asleep by now, her stuffed elephant tucked under her arm. They'd changed the locks 3 weeks ago. I'd stood at our front door, their front door, key not fitting, understanding everything in that small, simple moment. The locksmith's fresh metal shavings were still on the doormat that a security light clicked on near the loading dock, throwing shadows through the gaps in my cardboard. I held my breath, waiting. After 30 seconds, it clicked off again. Motion sensor. I'd have to remember that my phone had been dead for 2 weeks. No way to check messages, no alarm for tomorrow. But I could feel tomorrow coming anyway. The way you can feel rain before it hits. I wrapped the sleeping bag tighter and stared at my watch in the darkness. The green glow of the hands was the only familiar thing left. Everything else, the weight of my turnout gear, the sound of Sarah's laugh, The smell of coffee brewing at dawn felt like something I'd seen in a movie once. The watch kept ticking. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about the warehouse fire. But the children's voices found me anyway. 8 months earlier, everything was different. The call came in at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Structure fire, commercial building, possible entrapment. We were already rolling when dispatch updated. Witnesses report children inside. I was on the nozzle that day. Martinez was backing me up. The warehouse was old brick, 3 stories, the kind they built in the 50s with narrow staircases and no sprinklers. Black smoke poured from the second-floor windows. The first floor was mostly clear. We swept through, checking corners, calling out. The smoke was banking down from above, that thick black stuff that meant plastics burning. Bad news. Lieutenant Reynolds's voice crackled through my radio. Second floor's fully involved. Primary search, then we're backing out. We pushed up the stairs. The heat hit like a wall. Even through my gear, I could feel it trying to crawl inside. The visibility went to 10 feet from the stairwell. We were searching by touch, following walls, sweeping with our tools. That's when I heard them point 2 voices, high and scared, somewhere in the northeast corner. Kids, calling for their mom. Command, I've got voices, I radioed. Northeast corner, second floor. Negative. Reynolds came back immediately. Structure's compromised. Evacuate now. The building groaned above us, that sound of wood and metal giving up. Martinez grabbed my shoulder, pointed toward the stairs. But the voices came again. Crying now. They're right there, I told Martinez. 30 seconds. Mike, no? Lieutenant called it. I went anyway. The northeast corner was an oven. The smoke was so thick it had weight, like swimming through hot tar. I was crawling, feeling along the wall, my air gauge alarm starting to chirp. Low bottle. I found them behind an overturned desk. A boy and a girl, maybe 10 and 12, holding each other. But they weren't moving, weren't crying anymore. The smoke had already done its work. I pulled the boy out first. He weighed nothing, like carrying a pile of clothes. His Spider-Man shirt was still bright red somehow. I came back for the girl. She had friendship bracelets on both wrists, the kind kids make at summer camp. Pink and purple thread. By the time I got them to the stairs, 3 other firefighters were there, pulling us all out. The partial collapse happened 40 seconds later. Would have killed us all. The paramedics worked on the kids for 20 minutes. I sat on the bumper of engine 14, watching, my mask off, sucking clean air that tasted wrong. The girl's friendship bracelets were melted to her skin. The department called them heroes for trying. Said we did everything right. Said the kids were already gone before we even arrived. The coroner confirmed it. Carbon monoxide, not burns. They never felt the fire, but I'd heard them calling. I know I did. The mandatory counseling started the next week. Dr. Brennan had an office with soft chairs and a white noise machine. She said trauma could make us hear things, fill in gaps, create meaning where there was only tragedy. You wanted to save them, she said. Your mind gave you a reason to try. But I knew what I'd heard. The dream started right away. The kids would be talking to me, casual, like we were friends. The boy would tell me about his soccer team. The girl would show me her friendship bracelets, name each friend who'd made one. Then the smoke would come, and they'd ask why I didn't hurry. I started keeping vodka in the garage, just to sleep. Dana didn't check the garage at work. I'd freeze at doorways. Just for a second. Nobody noticed at first, or they pretended not to. We all had our moments. That was the job, but the seconds got longer. And the vodka moved from nighttime to morning to whenever the kids' voices got too loud. Reynolds started watching me closer. Martinez started double-checking my gear. The morning I showed up drunk to the house fire, not falling down, just enough. I stood at that doorway and saw those kids in the smoke that wasn't there. Heard them calling from rooms that didn't exist. Martinez moved past me, did my job while I stood there like a statue. You've got to get help, he said afterward, in the parking lot. Real help. But help meant admitting I was broken. And broken firefighters don't fight fires. The lieutenant put me on leave that afternoon. The union rep said it would be temporary, just until I got straight. Dana found the bottles that night. Everything after that happened fast. Like a structure collapse. 1 second you're standing on solid floor, the next you're falling through space. Reaching for anything to grab. But there was nothing to grab anymore. Dana found 17 bottles. She lined them up on the kitchen counter like evidence in a court case. Vodka mostly, but some whiskey, even cooking wine from the back of the pantry. She'd searched everywhere, behind the lawn mower, inside the old cooler, wrapped in Christmas decorations in the attic. 17, she said. Her voice was calm, which was worse than yelling. How long? Sarah was at her friend Emma's house. Dana had planned this. Since March, I said. Since the fire. She started pouring them out, one by one, into the sink. The smell filled the kitchen. Her hands were shaking, but her face stayed stone. I watched our wedding ring catch the light as she tilted each bottle. We'd been married 12 years. I can stop, I said. She laughed, but it came out like a cough. That's what you said after Reynolds called me. After Martinez covered for you. After you missed Sarah's recital. The recital? Spring concert. Sarah had a solo on the clarinet. I'd been in the garage, passed out next to the rake. Told them I had a migraine. I need help, I said. Then get it. She turned off the water, turned to face me. Her eyes were red but dry. Real help. Not promises. Not I'll try. Check into rehab or pack your things. My job. You already lost your job, Mike. She said it quiet, like she was telling me someone died. Reynolds called an hour ago. The room tilted. I grabbed the counter. That's not. I'm on leave. We're on leave. She pulled papers from her purse. Termination for cause. And these are from my lawyer. The papers had those little sticky tabs showing where to sign. She'd been planning this longer than today that I tried to explain about the kids in the warehouse, their voices, how I couldn't stop hearing them. But the words came out jumbled, pathetic. I sounded exactly like what I was, a drunk making excuses. The next morning, I went to another fire.it was my last chance. If I could just prove I could still do the job, Reynolds would reconsider. The union would fight for me. I put on my turnout gear. Dana had already left with Sarah and drove to the station. They were rolling out as I arrived. House fire on Oak Street. I jumped on the truck. Nobody stopped me. Maybe they thought it was official. Maybe they just felt sorry for me. The smoke was already showing when we pulled up. Gray-white, not black. Good sign. Martinez was on the nozzle. I grabbed my mask, started toward the door, and I froze. Not for a second. Not for two. I stood there, full gear, 20 feet from a routine house fire, and I couldn't move. My legs were concrete. My chest was being squeezed by invisible hands. And in the smoke, I saw them again. The boy, the girl, waiting. Martinez smelled it when he passed me. Vodka from the flask in my turnout coat. Jesus, Mike. He went in without me. They all did. I stood there like a lawn ornament while my crew, my brothers, did the job I'd trained for half my life. Nobody said anything on the ride back. Reynolds was waiting at the station with the union rep and someone from HR. They had forms ready. Had probably had them ready for weeks. We tried. Mike, Reynolds said. He looked older than I remembered. The city lawyers won't budge. Insurance liability. The union rep, Tommy Kowalski, different Tommy than the one I'd meet later, explained about the 2 previous warnings I'd somehow forgotten. The slurred radio call. The missed shifts I'd thought nobody noticed. Rehab, he said. Get clean, document it. Maybe in a year we can revisit. But we all knew that was bullshit. Firefighters who freeze at doors don't come back, that I signed where they showed me. My hand was steady somehow. Muscle memory that I drove home to find the locks already changed. The new locks were brass, not silver like our old ones. Dana had taped an envelope to the door with a key to a storage unit. Your things are there, the note said. Sarah's at my mother's for 2 weeks. Please don't come by. Inside the storage unit, my clothes, my father's remaining tools, photo albums. A box labeled Mike, miscellaneous. Like 12 years could fit in a 10 by 10 space that I sat on the concrete floor of that storage unit until the lights went off automatically. Then I sat in the dark. The next morning, I had $4,300 in checking, no job, no home, and a flask that was somehow already empty. The unemployment office opened at 9. I was there at 8:30, sitting in my truck, watching people in worse shape than me go in and out. Except they weren't in worse shape. They just got there first. The math was simple and terrible. Unemployment paid $487 a week. The cheapest studio apartment in town wanted $1,200 a month, plus first and last, plus deposit, plus proof of employment that I did the calculation 17 times on a napkin at McDonald's, nursing a dollar coffee that had gone cold. The numbers never changed. Even if I could scrape together the move-in costs, I'd have negative $128 each month for food, gas, phone. Everything else. The PTSD disability claim got denied in April. Insufficient evidence that the warehouse incident was the primary causative factor. They wanted documentation that my drinking started after, not before. But how do you prove when you started falling apart? I sold the truck first. Blue 2018 F-150, 40,000 miles. Perfect maintenance records because firefighters take care of their tools. Jerry at the used lot gave me $3,200. Worth $12,000, easy, but I needed cash that day. Walked away with an envelope of hundreds, feeling like I'd sold an organ. My father's tools went next. The table saw he'd built our deck with. The drill set he'd taught me to use when I was 7. The level with his initials carved in the handle. $200 at the pawn shop. The guy didn't even look at them really, just weighed them like scrap. Each sale bought less time. The motel wanted $59 a night, $350 a week if you paid up front. But that was still $1,400 a month, more than an apartment. Everything costs more when you're poor. I moved to cheaper places. The Starlight Inn, where the sheets had cigarette burns. The Budget Lodge, where someone overdosed in the next room while I listened to paramedics work. Then car camping in the Walmart parking lot until security knocked on my window at 3 a.m. My brother called from Portland. "Just come here," Kevin said. "Start fresh." Lisa cleaned out the basement room. But Sarah was here. Even with the restraining order keeping me 500 feet away, she was here. I could drive past her school at 3:15, watch her get on bus 47, park 6 blocks from the house, see her bike to Emma's on Saturdays. Still be her father, even from a distance. The storage unit went when I couldn't pay May's rent. 20 years of photos, Sarah's baby clothes. My firefighter commendations, all auctioned or thrown away. By June. I had 2 bags of clothes and nowhere left to fall. Sacred Heart Shelter had 40 beds and 80 men trying to sleep in them. The lottery system started at 6 p.m. You got a number. Waited in the courtyard. Hoped they called you before they hit capacity. My first night, I was number 53. Slept on a bench in the park, jumping at every sound. The second night, I got in. Bed 27, top bunk, near the bathroom. The mattress was thin as cardboard, covered in plastic that crinkled when you moved. The man below me coughed all night, wet and deep. That's where I watched them steal Marcus's shoes. Not Marcus the counselor, different Marcus. He'd fallen asleep with his shoes on, laces loose. 2 kids, maybe 17, worked together. One untied the laces careful as surgery while the other kept watch. They tied the shoes together and hung them from a water pipe like some sick trophy. Marcus woke up crying, asking everyone, but nobody had seen anything. Even me. The navigation center was supposed to be better. Newer, they said. Services, they said. But that's where I got scabies from the mattress. Started as an itch, then spread like fire across my skin. 2 weeks of scratching myself bloody, waiting for the free clinic to have openings. The doctor there looked exhausted, gave me permethrin cream, told me to wash everything I owned in hot water. "I don't have access to hot water," I said. She paused, then gave me extra cream samples from a drawer. "Do your best." Tommy taught me the real rules. Not Tommy from the Union. Tommy, Tennessee, Kowalski, 8 years on the streets. Found me trying to sleep sitting up in the day shelter, backpack clutched to my chest. "That ain't gonna work," he said. "Here." He showed me how to loop my arms through the straps. Use it as a pillow. They can't take it without waking you. He drew me a map on a napkin. Circles for good dumpsters. Whole Foods on Tuesdays. The bagel place every night at closing. X marks for dangerous spots. The underpass where the young guys stayed. The park bathroom where dealers worked. "Thursday meal at First Methodist is safe," he said. "Friday at St. Paul's, but avoid the coffee. It's been making people sick. Library's good until 8 p.m., but security knows faces after a week." I learned which security guards actually called police, which ones just wanted you gone. Learned to break down a camp in 30 seconds. Tarp, sleeping bag, everything into a trash bag and moving. "Never fight the sweeps," Tommy said. "They remember faces. Just grab what matters and ghost." What mattered kept getting smaller. The pain started as pressure, like someone squeezing my jaw from inside. Within 3 days, the left side of my face looked like I was hiding a baseball in my cheek. The tooth, upper molar, had cracked weeks ago on something hard in a dumpster sandwich. Now it was infected abscess spreading poison through my gums. The emergency room at Harborview was bright and cold. I'd been here before, but on the other side, bringing in patients, nodding at nurses I knew. Now I was nobody, holding my face, trying not to moan. Facial abscess, the triage nurse said, not looking up. Scale of 1 to 10. 9. She looked at me then, saw the swelling. We'll get you antibiotics. Extraction requires oral surgery. I need it out. Do you have insurance? No. The antibiotics will help with infection. For extraction, it's $400 up front, or you can apply for emergency medical funds. That takes 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The antibiotics helped for 2 days, then the pain came back worse. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything but the lightning in my jaw. Behind the McDonald's on Pine, I found needle-nose pliers in an abandoned toolbox. Rusty, but they'd close. I tried first in the bathroom, door locked, looking in the scratched mirror. But my hands shook too bad, couldn't get the angle. Outside, behind the dumpster, I steadied my hand against the brick wall. The pliers tasted like metal and rust. I found the tooth, what was left of it, and gripped. The first pull just broke off a piece. The second hit the nerve, and I bit through my own lip to keep from screaming. The third pull brought the root. Blood and pus poured out, relief so instant I almost passed out. I spat blood for an hour, packed the hole with napkins from my pocket. The gap showed when I talked now. Job interviews, the few I got, ended quick when they saw it. The missing tooth, the old clothes, the address that was clearly a shelter. One manager at a warehouse said they'd call. I had no phone for them to call. The phone got cut off the same week I lost the storage unit. No money to pay, no way to get callbacks, no alarm to wake up for day labor. Day labor pickup was at 5 a.m. at the Home Depot. First come, first served. 20 guys for maybe 5 jobs. Moving furniture, cleaning job sites, tearing out drywall. Cash at the end of the day, if they actually paid you. But without a phone alarm, I overslept. Without steel-toe boots, sold them. I couldn't do construction. Without a shower. Even the desperate contractors picked someone else. Every missing piece made the next piece harder to hold. The Home Depot parking lot at 4:45 a.m. was already half full that we stood in an informal line, based on who'd been coming longest. New guys at the back, regulars near the front. Tommy had introduced me 2 weeks ago, vouched that I wouldn't cause problems. That meant something here. The contractors rolled up in pickups, sizing us up like cattle. Need 3 guys, demo work. 2 for moving. 1 guy all day landscaping. They wanted young, strong, no visible addiction issues. I was 41, withdrawing from alcohol, with a missing tooth. Not first pick. When I did get chosen, the work was always the worst jobs their regular crews wouldn't do. Crawling under houses to pull out rat-infested insulation. Carrying shingles up ladders in 90-degree heat. Breaking concrete with a sledgehammer for 8 hours. $50 for the day, one contractor. Said after I'd loaded his entire truck with debris. You said 70. 50. Take it or nothing. What was I going to do? Call the labor board from my non-existent phone? I took the 50. Some days, no work at all. Stand there until 7 a.m., then walk to the library, pretend to read while I actually slept sitting up. The security guard, Mrs. Chun, knew but didn't say anything as long as I didn't snore that I applied for jobs on the library computers. Filled out applications for Target, Walmart, grocery stores. But the online forms wanted addresses, phone numbers, references. I put the shelter address once, never got a call back. Started lying, using the library's address, but then they wanted to mail me things. The computer time was limited to 1 hour. Spent most of it trying to remember passwords to accounts I'd set up when I had a normal life. My resume was on a cloud drive somewhere, but I'd forgotten which service, which email. Worse were the job sites where I knew people. Responded to a moving gig once. Turned out to be the Hendersons. Lived 3 blocks from my old house. Mrs. Henderson recognized me. Even with the tooth gone, the weight lost. Mike? Oh my God, Mike. I pretended not to know her, kept my head down, carried boxes. She tried to hand me an extra 20 at the end. I walked away before she could. Tommy got us a 2-day job cleaning out a hoarder house. The smell hit like a physical wall. Cat piss, rotting food, something dead in the walls. We wore bandanas over our faces, filled dumpster after dumpster. The owner's son wouldn't even go inside, just pointed from the yard. 100 each if you get it all today. He said that we worked 14 hours. My back screamed. My hands bled through work gloves I'd found in the trash. But $100 meant a week of safety. The transformation happened slowly, then all at once. First, people stopped making eye contact. The cashier at 7-Eleven would look past me, hand out change without touching my fingers. Then came the wider berths on sidewalks, the clutched purses, the car doors locking as I passed, that I caught my reflection in a store window and understood. Hollow cheeks, wild hair, clothes that hadn't been truly clean in weeks. I looked exactly like what I was. The invisible part was almost peaceful sometimes. Sitting in a Starbucks, nursing a small coffee I'd bought with found change, watching normal life happen around me. Business people discussing deals. Students typing papers. Mothers bribing toddlers with cake pops. Nobody saw me unless I moved too suddenly or stayed too long. But then I'd recognize someone, and the peaceful feeling would shatter, like seeing my old neighbor Jim at the grocery store. I was checking the dumpster out back. They threw out sandwiches at 10 p.m. when he came out for a smoke break. He managed the deli department. We'd watched Super Bowls together, borrowed each other's lawnmowers. That he saw me elbow deep in the dumpster, holding a wrapped turkey sandwich. Our eyes met. His face went through confusion, recognition, then horror, then something worse, pity. Mike. I ran. Left the sandwich, just ran. Heard him calling after me, but didn't stop. Or the time at the hospital. I was using their bathroom to clean up, and Martinez's wife came in with their daughter. The girl had broken her arm. Playground accident, probably. Martinez's wife looked right through me twice before recognition hit. Jesus Christ, she whispered, pulling her daughter closer. That I wanted to explain. Wanted to say I was still me, still the guy who'd taught Martinez to read smoke, who'd been at their wedding. But I just left, water still dripping from my hair. The worst was seeing Dana's car at a red light. Sarah in the passenger seat now. She'd gotten taller. They were laughing at something on the radio. Dana's hand reached over to ruffle Sarah's hair, and I could see my daughter's smile, the one with the crooked front tooth she got from me. The light turned green. They drove on. Neither looked my way. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a problem to avoid, a cautionary tale, a shape that meant downtown was getting worse. Store owners knew my face, had my description. The good coffee shop banned me after I fell asleep in their bathroom. The mall security had my photo at their desk. Sir, you need to move along. I heard it 20 times a day. From cops, security, store managers, people who just didn't want me near their space. Move along to where? There was nowhere that wanted me. Even the other homeless guys had hierarchies, territories, rules about who belonged where. I was still too new, too formerly normal. I made them nervous, like my fall from middle class might be contagious. December came with freezing rain that soaked through everything. The shelters filled by 4 p.m. now. If you weren't in line by 3:30, forget it. Tommy and I had a system. Alternate who held spots while the other searched for food or cardboard for insulation. 18 degrees tonight, Tommy said, checking a newspaper he'd found. They'll open the overflow at St. Mark's if it hits 15. 3 degrees. That was the margin between a bed and maybe dying. We'd built a decent camp under the I-5 overpass. Tarps strung between shopping carts, walls made from pallets. Almost windproof. 6 of us shared it. Tommy, me, an old Vietnamese guy named Duc, 2 kids who couldn't be 20, and a woman called Shelter Mary to distinguish her from Shopping Cart Mary. The cops found it December 15th. 10 minutes, the officer said. Not mean, just tired. Take what you can carry. I grabbed my sleeping bag, the good tarp, a coffee can I kept papers in. Watched them throw everything else in a garbage truck. Months of collected survival gear, crushed in seconds. Tommy had a seizure during the sweep. It started as shaking. Then he was on the ground, convulsing. The cops backed up, called for medics. I tried to hold his head, keep him from hitting the concrete. Blood foamed from his mouth where he'd bitten his tongue. He needs to keep warm, I told the paramedics. He's been trying to get sober, the withdrawal. We got it, one said, not unkind but dismissive. They loaded him up, drove away. I tried to follow, but the hospital wouldn't tell me anything. Not family, not anything. That night hit 11 degrees. St. Mark's opened overflow, but I couldn't leave in case Tommy came back. I made a nest of newspapers in an ATM vestibule, the kind with double doors. The security camera was broken. I checked weeks ago. Around 3 a.m., another guy tried to come in. Young, shaking from cold or drugs. There's room, I said. Moving over, he pulled a knife. Give me your shit. I don't have anything. The sleeping bag. Now. I gave it to him. He left me there with newspapers. The ATM camera recorded nothing. The bank manager found me in the morning, called the cops. They told me to move along. I walked to the hospital to check on Tommy. The nurse said he'd been discharged. No forwarding information. But the way she said it, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, I knew. Found out 3 days later from Duke. Tommy died the second night. Alone. They'd released him too early, and he'd had another seizure in an alley off Pine. I broke into a construction site that night. They were building condos, luxury urban living starting at $2,800. The units had working heat. I slept in a bathtub on the 3rd floor. Cried for the first time since Dana left. Morning came with workers staring at me. Marcus found me on day 3 at the Holy Gospel Recovery Mission. Not Tommy's Marcus or Shoe Marcus. This Marcus was staff. A counselor with scars on his arms and understanding in his eyes. I was shaking on a cot, sweating through detox, trying not to vomit on myself again. Afghanistan, Marcus said, sitting on the next cot. 3 tours. Came back missing pieces I didn't know I'd lost. I turned to look at him. Black guy, maybe 40, built like he still did PT every morning. Tattoos pecked out from his sleeves. Military stuff mixed with recovery slogans. How long you been clean? I asked. For years, 2 months, 11 days. He smiled. But who's counting? The program was 30 days. Bible study at 6 a.m., group therapy at 9. Work duty at noon, more group at 3, dinner at 5, sermon at 7. Lights out at 9. Repeat. I don't believe in God, I told Marcus. Neither did I. Still not sure I do. But I believe in not sleeping outside, and they got beds. 23 men in the program. Half were like me, first-time homeless, still shocked by the fall. Half were lifers, using the program for winter shelter. No intention of staying sober past the door. That MY bunkmate was a kid named Tyler, 22, meth addict from Spokane. He drew constantly, incredibly detailed sketches of dragons and demons on any available paper. It keeps the voices quieter, he explained. Day 10, I stopped shaking. Day 15, I could eat solid food. Day 20, I stood up in group and told them about the warehouse fire. I heard them. I said, 2 kids. I know everyone says I couldn't have, but I did. The room was quiet. Then an old-timer named Frank said, I still hear my daughter. Car accident, 1987. Sometimes hearing them is how we survive losing them. Day 23, the nightmares changed. Instead of the kids asking why I didn't hurry, they just watched. Present but peaceful. Like they were waiting for me to forgive myself. Day 24, Tyler overdosed in the bathroom. Someone had smuggled in fentanyl. I found him, lips blue, foam at his mouth. Did CPR until the medics arrived, but I could tell from their faces. You did everything right, Marcus said later. Sometimes that's not enough. Story of my life. No, he said. Story of your life is you keep trying anyway. Day 25, I wanted to leave. Day 26, I packed my bag. Day 27, Marcus sat with me all night, talking about his kids, his divorce, the 6 months he lived in his car before getting clean. Day 28, I decided to finish. Day 30 was December 30th. They gave me a certificate, a list of resources, and a sleeping bag. Marcus handed me his phone number. You're going to want to use, he said. Call me instead. I walked out into rain that felt like baptism. Made it 6 blocks before I bought a bottle with the $20 I'd saved from plasma donations. But I called Marcus first. 6 blocks, he said. That's pretty good. The refrigerator box behind Safeway became home after I left the program. January was bitter, but the loading dock had that overhang, and the night crew pretended not to see me. I think one of them, a young guy with gauges in his ears, was leaving out the almost expired sandwiches on purpose. They'd be right on top in the dumpster, still wrapped, mysteriously damaged, with a tiny tear in the packaging, but I'd gotten better at the cardboard architecture. Learned to pick boxes with wax coating. They lasted longer against rain. Fold the flaps just right to create a windbreak. Position it so the security light didn't hit directly, but gave enough glow to see threats coming. The watch still worked, though the band was held together with duct tape now. Every night at 11:47, I'd check it. Same time I'd first set up here. Like an anniversary nobody else knew about. Some nights were quiet. Just the hum of the refrigeration units, distant traffic, Maybe a cat fight in the alley. I'd lie there trying to remember recipes I used to cook. Mom's pot roast with the carrots and potatoes. The chili that won the firehouse competition 3 years running. Sarah's favorite mac and cheese with 5 different cheeses. Other nights were chaos. Fights over territory. Someone overdosing 20 feet away. Cops doing sweeps. Flashlights cutting through the dark like searchlights. I kept a journal in a Ziploc bag. Wrote with a golf pencil I'd found. Not letters to Sarah anymore. Those hurt too much. Just lists. Things I wanted to remember. Names of firefighters I'd worked with. Streets in our district. The color of Dana's eyes in sunlight. Sarah's shoe sizes from age 3 to 10. The worst part was my mind going soft. I'd forget what day it was, whether I'd eaten, where I'd left something important. The constant vigilance needed to survive, watching for threats, finding food, staying warm, left no room for normal thinking, but I remembered firefighting. Could still recite every protocol, every street in our coverage area, the flow rates of different nozzles. My body remembered too. When sirens passed, my muscles would tense, ready to gear up. Sometimes Engine 14 would respond to calls in this neighborhood. I'd recognize the truck, see Martinez driving, Reynolds in the officer's seat. They never saw me. Just another shape in the shadows. February 10th would have been Sarah's 12th birthday. The woman at the library started leaving books on the return cart. Mrs. Chun, the security guard who pretended I wasn't sleeping in the reading chairs. She'd wheel the cart past my spot, always with something at the top. Someone returned this. Might have to sit here a while before I process it. Always books about people surviving things. Mountain climbing disasters. Shipwrecks. War memoirs. Like she was trying to tell me something without saying it. The coffee shop kid, Brandon, would mess up orders right when I walked by. Made this wrong. Gonna have to throw it out, he'd say loudly to no one. Leave it on the outside table for exactly 3 minutes before coming to clear it. Always still hot. The guy at the gas station, overnight shift, would let me use the bathroom if no other customers were around. Even let me fill my water bottle from the sink. Just be quick, he'd say, never making eye contact, preserving some dignity for both of us. These tiny kindnesses kept me human. But there were the other moments too. Like the woman who threw coins at me. Actually threw them, saying get a job. The teenagers who filmed me sleeping, posted it somewhere online I'd never see. The security guard at the bank who'd spray me with a hose to make me move. Even in winter, I learned to read people quickly. The ones who'd help, the ones who'd hurt, the ones who'd pretend you didn't exist. Started recognizing the same faces, commuters, shop owners, other homeless folks on their own routines. There was a network if you paid attention. Shelter Mary knew which churches served meals without sermons. Duke knew a spot behind the Vietnamese restaurant where they'd give you old rice if you helped break down boxes. Shopping cart Mary, different Mary, knew every public bathroom in a 10-block radius, which ones had soap, which ones locked at night. You were somebody before, Shelter Mary said one night, sharing a tarp during unexpected rain. I can tell. You still walk like you're going somewhere important. Everybody was somebody before, I said. Nah. Some of us were born into nothing. You fell from something. She wasn't bitter about it, just observant. That's harder in some ways. You remember having choices. She was right. Every decision I'd made that led here had felt reasonable at the time. The smoke woke me before the sirens did. Black smoke, the bad kind, rolling across the sky maybe 4 blocks away. My body responded before my mind, standing, calculating wind direction, estimating response time. Old habits that I ran toward it without thinking. My legs remembered the weight of turnout gear that wasn't there. My hands reached for tools I didn't have. The Richardson's house. 3 doors from where I used to live. I knew this house. Been to their 4th of July parties. Fixed their fence one summer. Mr. Richardson was diabetic, moved slow. Mrs. Richardson had that bad hip. She was on the lawn screaming. Paul's still inside. Upstairs. His office. The front door stood open, smoke pouring out. No firefighters yet. Could hear sirens maybe minute out. I knew that house's layout like my own. Same builder, same floor plan, just mirrored, went in low, staying under the smoke. No gear, no mask, just a wet shirt pulled over my face. The heat hit like memory, training kicked in. Stay low, follow walls, count doorways. The stairs were clearish. Smoke banking down, but not floor level yet. Second floor was worse. Black, hot, angry. Found the office door, closed, good sign. Opened it to find Richardson on the floor, passed out but breathing. He was heavy, maybe 200 pounds. But adrenaline is amazing. Grabbed under his arms, dragged backward, his feet bumping downstairs. The smoke was thicker now. My lungs burned, eyes streaming. Lost direction for a second, then found the door frame. Dragged him onto the lawn just as engine 14 pulled up. Martinez was first off the truck. Saw me with Richardson, soot-covered, coughing, homeless. His face went through 10 emotions in 2 seconds. Mike, but then training kicked in for him too. He took over, started oxygen on Richardson while the rest of the crew attacked the fire. I stepped back, faded into the gathering crowd before anyone could ask questions. Watched them work. Perfect execution. Aggressive interior attack, ventilation, search teams. They saved the house, most of it. Richardson would live. I left before the overhaul, before the questions, before someone decided to make me a story point. 2 days later, Martinez found me behind the Safeway. Wasn't wearing uniform, just jeans and an old Seahawks sweatshirt. Brought 2 coffees, good ones from the place that costs $6. Richardson's telling everyone you saved him, he said. Just did what anyone would do. No, Martinez said. You did what you were trained to do. Martinez sat on the loading dock next to me. Not saying anything at first, we drank the expensive coffee while morning delivery trucks rumbled past. He looked older, gray in his beard now, lines around his eyes I didn't remember. 3 years does that. Reynolds wants to see you, he finally said. I can't. The termination, not officially. Just, he has something to tell you. I can't go to the station. He'll come here. Tomorrow. 6 a.m., before shift. Martinez pulled out a 20, tried to hand it to me. I didn't take it. Mike, just get some food. Maybe clean up a little. Why? Because Richardson's got connections. And his wife's been calling the department every day since the fire. Telling anyone who'll listen that you're a hero. I'm not. You ran into a burning building with no gear to save a man you barely knew anymore. What else would you call it? He left the 20 on the dock when he went. That night, I used the gas station bathroom to clean up best I could. Trimmed my beard with scissors I'd found. Washed my least dirty shirt in the sink. The gap from my missing tooth still showed, but nothing to do about that. Reynolds showed up at 5:47 a.m. 13 minutes early, like always. Still looked like a battalion chief, even in civilian clothes. Straight posture. Command presence. That way of scanning everything at once. He sat where Martinez had. Pulled out a thermos of coffee. You look like shit, he said. Thanks, chief. Just Jim now. Haven't been your chief for 18 months. We sat quiet for a minute. Then he said, the warehouse kids. I should have sent 2 teams. Should have listened when you heard voices. They were already gone. Coroner said, I know what he said. Still, he poured coffee into 2 cups. I put you in an impossible position. Then I let you fall apart instead of forcing you into help. Not your fault I became a drunk. Maybe not. But it was my job to take care of my people, and I failed. He pulled out a folder. There's a new program. Peer support for firefighters with PTSD and addiction issues. Part-time, barely pays anything, but it comes with a room at the Y while you get back on your feet. I can't. The termination, Richardson's brother-in-law, is on the city council. Amazing how paperwork can get reassessed when someone's motivated. I stared at the folder Reynolds left behind. Peer support specialist, fire department wellness program. 20 hours a week. $18 an hour. Not much, but fortune compared to nothing. The Y room came with it. Single occupancy, shared bathroom, but a door that locked. There was a letter attached, handwritten on Richardson's personal stationery. Michael, it read, you saved my life. I don't care what happened before or where you're living now. The man who pulled me from that fire is the same man who used to help me fix my fence, who taught my grandson to throw a baseball when you lived 3 doors down. People don't change that much. They just get lost sometimes. Let us help you find your way back. Paul Richardson. Under that, a list of signatures. Mrs. Richardson. Their 3 kids. Their neighbors, the Johnsons, the Nguyen's, the Petersons. Even Mrs. Delgado, who used to complain about our trash cans, the bottom, in careful cursive. We remember who you really are. I sat on that loading dock and cried. Not the desperate tears of detox or the rage tears of loss, but something else. Like grief finally breaking into something smaller, more manageable. The job would start Monday if I wanted it. 3 days to decide. I walked to the library, used the computer to email the program coordinator. Took 15 minutes to remember my password, another 10 to write 3 sentences. I'm interested in the position. I have lived experience with PTSD and substance abuse. I can start Monday. Then I walked to the overpass where Tommy died. Someone had left flowers, plastic ones from the dollar store, but still. I sat there telling him about the job, about maybe getting clean for real, about being useful again. You'd say I'm overthinking it, I said to the empty space. Just like you always did. Found Marcus's number in my pocket. From the church program, somehow hadn't lost it. Called from the library's phone. I got offered something, I told him. A chance. I'm scared I'll mess it up. You will, he said. Multiple times. That's not the question. Question is whether you'll keep trying after you mess up. Saturday night, I cleaned out my spot behind Safeway. Folded the cardboard flat, left it by recycling. Kept the good tarp and sleeping bag, just in case that I showed up at the YMCA at 7 a.m. Monday, an hour early. The woman at the desk looked at my paperwork twice. Room 314, she said, handing me an actual key. 3rd floor, end of the hall. The room was maybe 8 by 10 feet. Single bed, small desk, chair, lamp. Shared bathroom down the hall. But the door locked. The window opened. The radiator worked. I sat on the bed for 20 minutes, afraid to touch anything. The peer support office was in the basement of a city building, squeezed between storage and maintenance. My supervisor, Linda Chun, different from library Mrs. Chun, was a former paramedic who'd burned out after too many dead kids. We get about 10 referrals a week, she explained. Firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, sometimes dispatch. All first responders dealing with trauma, addiction, or both. Your job is to listen and share what helped you. You're not a therapist. You're proof that survival is possible. My first client was a paramedic, 26, who'd worked a school shooting. Kept washing his hands, over and over, during our talk. I can't get the blood off, he said. I know it's not there, but I feel it under my fingernails, in the creases of my palms. I use a brush in the shower, scrub until my hands bleed, and I still feel it. His name was Jason. 3 months ago, he'd been first on scene at Madison Elementary. 7 kids down, ages 6 to 11. He'd tried to save them all, done everything right, lost 5 anyway. I knew the triage protocol, he said, hands still moving like he was washing them. Black tags for the ones too far gone. I had to walk past a 6-year-old to get to one I could save. She was looking at me, still conscious. I had to choose. I knew that weight. Different details, same gravity. Tell me about the ones you saved. I said. He looked up, surprised. What? 2 lived, right? Tell me about them. Jason's hand slowed. Sophia, 8 years old. Took 2 bullets to the shoulder, but missed the arteries. She kept asking about her teacher. And Marcus, 10. Got shot, but we got him to surgery in time. His mom sends me pictures. He's playing soccer again. You gave them that. You gave 2 mothers their kids back. But the other 5 will never leave you, I finished. They're yours now. You'll carry them forever. The question isn't whether you'll carry them, it's how. I told him about the warehouse kids. How I'd heard them calling. Maybe real, maybe not, and couldn't reach them in time. How I tried to drown them in vodka, lost everything, ended up behind a Safeway in a cardboard box. But you're here now, Jason said. You got out. No, I corrected. I got through. There's a difference. Getting out implies you leave it behind. Getting through means you learn to walk with it. We talked for an hour. When he left, his hands were still. Not healed. That would take time, maybe forever. But still, Linda debriefed with me after. How'd that feel? Like being useful again. You were always useful, she said. You just forgot for a while. The rest of that first day was paperwork, orientation videos, meeting the other peer counselor, a former cop named Denise who'd survived her partner's suicide. She looked at me the way broken people recognize each other, that quick scan that catalogs damage. How long clean? She asked. 73 days. Gets easier around 6 months. Then harder again at a year when you think you're cured. You're never cured. You're just not actively dying. After work, strange to think of it as work, I walked back to the Y. Rush hour traffic, normal people heading to normal homes. I used to be part of that stream, complaining about commute times and what to make for dinner. Now I was adjacent to it, close enough to see, but not quite able to join. My room felt bigger the second time. I unpacked my 2 bags, hung my 3 shirts in the narrow closet, put my toothbrush in a cup by the sink down the hall. Small acts of residence. There was a knock around 7 p.m. Marcus stood in the doorway with a coffee maker and a grocery bag. "Housewarming," he said, pushing past me. "Can't have you drinking that instant crap." He'd brought real coffee, filters, sugar packets lifted from various restaurants. A mug that said, "World's okayest dad." Found it at Goodwill, he said. Thought I'd appreciate the honesty. We sat on my bed, the only place to sit, and he caught me up on the church program. 3 new guys. 1 would make it, 2 wouldn't. "How do you know?" I asked. "The one who'll make it asked about tomorrow. The other 2 were still negotiating with yesterday." After he left, I made coffee just to smell something familiar. The Safeway cardboard was 48 hours ago, but felt like a different life. Not better yet, just different. I found paper in the desk drawer, started a letter to Sarah I'd never sent. "Dear Sarah, today was my first day at a new job. I help people who are going through what I went through. It's scary and I might mess it up, but I'm trying." Stop there. What else could I say? That I missed her every second? That I still knew her school schedule, her friends' names, her favorite songs? That I was sorry became too small a word for what I'd put them through? Instead, I made a list. Things to do tomorrow. Show up, listen to whoever came in. Drink, call Marcus if the urge hit. Eat at least 2 meals. Show up the day after. Simple things. Possible things. The kind of list you make when you're rebuilding from zero. The radiator clanged and hissed, warming the room. Outside, I could hear residents in the hallway. Men like me, starting over or trying to. One was singing in the shower, off-key but enthusiastic. Another was on the payphone, telling someone he was doing better. "Yeah, Mom. Really better this time." I lay on the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling tiles. Water-stained, one missing, but solid. Tomorrow I'd meet more broken first responders. I'd tell them parts of my story, the useful parts, the ones that might make them feel less alone. I'd pretend I knew what I was doing until maybe I actually did. The watch on my wrist still read 11:47. But for the first time in months, that felt like a beginning instead of an ending point. 3 months into the peer support job, I saw Sarah at the farmer's market. I wasn't supposed to be there. The restraining orders still said 500 feet, and the market was only 4 blocks from their house. But I needed vegetables for the tiny hot plate I'd bought for my room. And Saturday morning felt safe. Dana usually took Sarah to soccer, except there she was, standing by the apple stand, counting change in her palm. 12 years old now, taller than when I'd seen her through the car window. Her hair was shorter, a bob that made her look older. She wore jeans with intentional rips at the knees and a Nirvana t-shirt I didn't recognize. I froze behind the bread truck. 40 feet away, close enough to see the concentration on her face as she counted quarters. Close enough to notice she'd gotten braces. Close enough to watch her carefully select 4 Honeycrisp apples, placing them gently in her bag like they were made of glass. She looked up suddenly, scanning the crowd. For a second, I thought she'd seen me, but her eyes moved past, looking for someone else. Then Dana appeared from the coffee stand, carrying 2 cups, and my chest clenched. Dana looked the same but different. Same walk, that purposeful stride I'd fallen in love with at 26. But her shoulders seemed lighter somehow, like she'd set down something heavy. She smiled at Sarah, handed her what was probably hot chocolate. Sarah never liked coffee, said it tasted like dirt. They stood there talking, and I could see Sarah laugh at something Dana said. A real laugh, not the polite one she used to give when we were fighting and she was trying to make things normal. This laugh reached her eyes, made her throw her head back a little, just like Dana did. I wanted to leave. Should have left. But I stood there like a statue, watching my family exist without me. They looked okay. Better than okay. They looked like they'd figured out how to be happy again. Then Sarah turned. And this time she did see me. Her face went through so many things. Shock. Confusion. Something that might have been joy before it shifted to fear. She grabbed Dana's arm, whispered something. Dana's head snapped up, found me immediately. Like she had radar for threats. I raised my hands, stepped backward, trying to show I was leaving. But Sarah pulled on Dana's arm again, said something urgent. They had a quick, heated exchange I couldn't hear. Then Dana nodded, just once, and Sarah walked toward me. She stopped 10 feet away. Close enough to talk, far enough to run. Dad. The word hit like a physical thing. I hadn't heard anyone call me that in almost 2 years. "Hi, baby," I said, my voice cracking. "You look different." She studied my face, taking in the missing tooth, the weight loss, the clothes from Goodwill that almost fit. Are you? Are you okay? I'm getting better. I have a job now. A room. Mom said you were sick, that your brain got hurt from the fire where those kids. Yeah, something like that. She looked back at Dana, who was watching us like a hawk. Then back at me. I kept your cookbook, the one with all your firehouse recipes. Mom said I could. I had to breathe carefully to keep from crying. That's good. The chili recipe on page 42, that's the winner. I know. I made it for the school potluck. Everyone loved it. She paused. I told them my dad taught me. We stood there, years of absence filling the space between us. She looked like she wanted to say more. Maybe ask why I left, why I couldn't get better, why I chose alcohol over them. All fair questions I didn't have good answers for. I saw in the paper, she said finally, about you saving Mr. Richardson. They called you a hero. I just did what anyone would. No, she interrupted, sounding exactly like her mother. You did what you always do. You ran toward the fire. Dana called out, Sarah, time to go. Sarah looked at me one more time. I'm in the spring concert. May 15th, 7 p.m. Clarinet section. She turned to leave, then looked back. Maybe you could hear it from outside. If you were walking by or something. Then she ran back to Dana, who put an arm around her and steered her away. But before they turned the corner, Dana looked back. Just for a second. She nodded, so small I might have imagined it. But I knew that nod. It was the one she used to give when I'd suggest something risky but worth trying. Not approval exactly, but not rejection either. I stood there until the market sounds came back. Vendors calling prices, kids asking for samples, dogs barking at each other. Normal life continuing around me like I was a stone in a river. That night, I wrote Sarah a letter I'd never sent. Told her about the peer support job, about the firefighters I was helping, about how I was 73 days sober. Told her I understood if she never wanted to see me again, but that I thought about her every day. That I was proud of her for making the chili. That May 15th was already circled on the calendar I'd bought for my room. Monday, I told Linda about seeing them. She listened without judgment. She was good at that. Then asked, how did it feel? Like watching life through a window I can't open. Windows can be opened, she said. Just sometimes takes time to find the right key. That afternoon, my client was a firefighter from Station 7. House fire went wrong, lost a colleague, couldn't stop replaying it. I told him about the warehouse, about the kids, about losing everything. But also about Richardson, about the peer support job, about seeing my daughter pick apples like they were precious. So it gets better? He asked. No, I said. It gets different. You learn to carry it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, carrying it helps someone else set theirs down for a while. He nodded, understanding what I couldn't have understood 2 years ago, that broken people can still be useful, maybe especially useful, to other broken people. That surviving isn't the same as being fixed, but it's still worth doing. The morning of May 15th, I sat in my room at the Y, staring at the watch on my wrist that IT hadn't worked in months. The face was cracked from when I'd fallen on ice last winter. The band was more duct tape than leather now. But I still wore it every day, still wounded each morning even though the hands never moved. Stuck at 11:47. The exact time I'd first set up that cardboard box behind Safeway, I'd been sober 168 days. Had my 6-month chip from NA in my pocket, edges worn from rubbing it when cravings hit. The peer support job had gone from 20 hours to 32, not quite full-time, but Linda said maybe by fall. I'd helped 43 first responders so far, mostly firefighters and EMTs dealing with the accumulation of tragedy that comes with the job. Some were like me. One bad call that broke something fundamental. Others were slow burns, 20 years of dead kids and burnt bodies finally catching up. A few were young, fresh out of academy, already seeing ghosts. I told them all the same thing. The ghosts don't go away, but you can learn to live with them. That my room had accumulated things. A real blanket, not just the sleeping bag. 3 pairs of pants that fit. A coffee maker from Goodwill. Pictures on the wall, not of family. Couldn't handle that yet, but of mountains, oceans. Things that reminded me the world was bigger than my mistakes. Marcus visited weekly. Even though I wasn't his official sponsee. We'd drink terrible coffee in the Y's basement, and he'd tell me about his latest struggles, keeping it real. 4 years clean, and I still want to use sometimes, he'd say. Difference is now I want other things more. At 6:30 p.m., I walked to the middle school. The parking lot was full, families streaming in. I found a spot across the street, technically 512 feet from the main entrance according to Google Maps. Close enough to hear if they opened the auditorium doors. Far enough to honor the court order. I could see Dana's car in the third row. The dent in the bumper from when she'd backed into our mailbox was still there. Sarah's clarinet case was probably in the back, the one we'd bought when she started band in 5th grade. At7. The doors closed, the concert starting. I couldn't hear anything at first. But then someone propped open a side door. Against fire code, I noticed automatically, and music drifted out. The 6th grade band played first, squeaky and enthusiastic. Then the 7th grade, Sarah's group. They played something classical first, then a Disney medley. I could pick out the clarinets. Imagine Sarah in the second row where she always sat, fingers moving over the keys. That little furrow in her brow when she concentrated. During intermission, people came out for air. I moved behind a tree, but no one was looking for me. Just another guy walking his evening route, invisible in the right way this time. The 8th graders played last. Then everyone came together for the finale. The doors were propped wide now, parents standing in the doorway recording on phones. The combined bands played Lean on Me, and I could hear young voices singing along. Then it was over. Families poured out, kids carrying instrument cases, parents taking pictures. I turned to leave before Dana and Sarah emerged, but something made me look back. Sarah was standing by the side door, clarinet case in hand, scanning the street. She saw me by the tree, raised her hand in a small wave. I waved back. She smiled, just a quick thing, then disappeared back into the crowd. I walked back to the Y, taking the long way past the old house. Someone else lived there now. They'd painted it yellow, Dana's least favorite color. The fence I'd built was gone, replaced with chain link. But the tree we'd planted when Sarah was born was taller, fuller, branches reaching past the second floor at Station 14. The night shift was checking equipment. Martinez was there, saw me passing, nodded. Just a professional acknowledgement, but it was something. I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was a guy who used to be someone, fell apart, and was slowly becoming someone again. Different someone, damaged someone, but someone. I in my room. I sat on the bed and took off the watch. Really looked at it for the first time in months. The crack across the face looked like a river on a map. The stopped hands like a compass pointing nowhere and everywhere at once. Tomorrow, I decided, I'd get it fixed. Not because I needed to know the time. I had a phone now, a cheap flip phone, but it worked. But because some things deserve to be repaired, even if they'll never work quite the same. I opened the window, let in the night air. Somewhere in the city, sirens were wailing. Fire, medical, police, the whole symphony of emergency. Once, that sound meant I was needed. Now it meant others were doing the work I couldn't do anymore. But tomorrow, I'd sit across from another firefighter who'd frozen at a doorway, who saw faces in smoke, who'd chosen bottle over badge. I'd tell them my story, the warehouse, the kids, the cardboard box, Richardson's fire, this room, the concert I heard from outside. I'd tell them that saving yourself is the hardest rescue you'll ever make, and it's okay if you need help. That's what firefighters do. We help each other out of burning buildings, even when the building is our own life. I wound the watch one more time, habit more than hope. But this time, I swear I heard it tick. Just once. Maybe twice. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Or maybe some broken things are just waiting for the right moment to start working again. I put the watch back on my wrist, the duct tape rough against my skin. Tomorrow I'd get it fixed. Tomorrow I'd answer my phone when Linda called with new referrals. Tomorrow I'd be useful. Tonight, I sat by my window and watched the city lights, each one a life, a story, a possible fire or possible rescue. The watch on my wrist was still broken, still stopped at 11:47. But I could feel time moving anyway, pulling me forward into whatever came next. Sarah had waved. Dana had nodded. I had a room with a door that locked and a job that mattered, and 168 days without a drink. IT wasn't enough. It wasn't fixed. It wasn't the life I'd lost, but it was mine, and it was real, and tomorrow it would be 169 days. The watch stayed silent on my wrist. But I was keeping time anyway.